Oh boy! Let's hear the verdict. Was it worth it? Let's check this out.
Well, it's been quite the journey, dear viewer.
From what I hear.
5 seasons and over 50 hours of TV all brought us to this point, and all of it came down to one question. Would Stranger Things manage to stick the landing? And now that I've seen all 128 minutes of this show's finale, the answer is... complicated. On one hand, it's completely overblown, overwritten, melodramatic, and self-indulgent to the point of parody. The final confrontation is basically a Marvel movie with portals and sky beams and superheroes and giant kaijus rampaging across alien planets. Half the insanely bloated cast could best be described as, well, we had to give them something to do. It's probably going to be forever overshadowed in people's minds by Will's stupid coming out scene that was so bursting with emotionally manipulative earnestness that it felt more like a Hallmark commercial than a sci-fi mystery show, and considering the epilogue is almost an hour...
So from what I understand from what most fans are saying is the fact that it was such a misplaced moment. It's like we all knew that the dude was gay. They hinted at it for years. But the fact that they put that moment in there the way they did, it was preachy, it was tiresome, it made you roll your eyes, it just didn't work, and it pissed people off. You can see those ratings on Rotten Tomatoes too. The fans are going crazy on that show right now.
Long by itself, a whole lot of things get conveniently forgotten about so the writers could have a nice, neat ending. But... I did kind of like it. I know. Maybe I'm just getting soft in my old age. Maybe I'm falling for the emotional manipulation of a show that's become nostalgic for itself. But the fact is, it's kind of earned it at this point. Stranger Things has been around for almost a quarter of my life, and although it hasn't exactly been a constant presence, the ending does feel like a significant event that's treated with all the gravitas it deserves. And then some. Now, I'm going to talk about the plot here, so if you don't want any spoilers...
I don't see her as being Jean Grey at all. But let's see if she pulls it off. Something about her is just not Jean Grey. But let's see if she pulls it off. Everyone says that's who she's cast as, but maybe she's not. Maybe she's really, Peter's daughter or something. We'll see, but it seems everyone's pointing toward that.
For this show, I suggest you run off and hide under the bed, you fucking pussies. Anyway, let's begin. The finale kicks off with Vecna using Holly and the other kidnapped children as psychic battery packs to merge our dimension with an alien one where the Mind Flayer lives, because it turns out the Upside Down is actually just a meat tunnel that connects the two worlds, and the only way to stop him is for 11, Max, and whatever that other girl's called to interrupt the ritual by travelling through Vecna's memories inside his heads. And reading that sentence back now, holy shit, that has to be absolutely baffling to anyone who hasn't seen the show. It did make me wonder, though, how his memories even function in this world, because wouldn't he only remember stuff that he directly experienced at the time? Like, events taking place in other rooms or other locations would just be blank because he wasn't there to see and remember them.
Don't ask questions.
Nah, whatever. So they get to the room where the ritual's happening, and they save the kids just as the dimensions start to merge, allowing Rambo Nancy to lead the rest of the groovy gang up into the abyss, because I guess you can just physically climb into whole other dimensions now, where they start searching for Vecna's lair so that they can kill his physical body. Why is this 90-pound girl who can barely even hold a gun suddenly the most badass soldier who ever lived?
That's how it goes.
I don't know. They had to give her something to do, I guess. Why are the rest of the gang armed with spears and Molotov cocktails instead of, I don't know, even more guns? Don't know. But then Hopper gets fooled into blowing a hole in the isolation tank where 11 is operating out of, which takes her out of Vecna's mind, but that's okay because then she just kind of leapfrogs up into the abyss anyway, just in time for a big confrontation with the bad guy. And I can't quite believe that this sequence is even real, but she flies through the air like Captain Marvel and blasts her way inside its body.
Really?
If you ever wanted an example...
Okay, so the last season that I watched was season 3. And I don't know if I finished that. I'm looking back here to see where, and like the way I feel from everything, I just do not feel like going back into this. Like I'm watching these clips and a lot of this looks bad. You get what I'm saying? I'm not talking about the story. I'm saying it looks bad. Like, bad special effects. Things don't look right. And that takes me out of stuff, too. Along with all the garbage controversy that's going, the modern audience controversy going on with this series, I don't think I can finish it. But I would like to know what he thinks, because who knows? Maybe one day I will go back to finish it.
Power creep in long-running narratives, this is what it looks like, boys and girls. So Nancy and the groovy gang hatch a cunning plan to damage it by shooting it a lot.
You sure about that? You sure about that?
Do you really think an M16 is going to have any impact on something the size of the Empire State Building? My favourite part of this 5 minutes of pure insanity has got to be Steve and Dustin, who for some reason get right underneath it and start stabbing.
That right there just makes me think of It, you know, because the 90s series, or with the mini-series that they came out with, and at the end they had to fight it. It was a giant spider, you know, like...
And it with spears.
Just makes me think of it. Wait, what?
And starts minutes of pure insanity has got to be Steve and Dustin, who for some reason get right underneath it and start stabbing it with spears. Like, you understand that neither of you are possibly getting out of this in one piece, right? Or if you do, it's going to be one big flat piece. Considering how out of this in one piece, right?
Black Kid's haircut really looks like Giles' haircut. A lot.
Or if you do, it's going to be one big flat piece. Considering how powerful 11 has become now, it also kind of makes you wonder why she didn't just rip its fucking head off or crush its heart into dust or something, but whatever. Stranger Things has always had trouble with big climactic confrontations like this, because they were pretty much always resolved with 11 pointing her hand at the camera in slow motion and screaming really loud. But again, they had to give everyone else something to do, so this is what we end up with, I guess. The upshot of all this madness is that she's struggling to fight Vecna all by herself, but then Will stops crying long enough to show up and harness the power of the big gay to push him into a fucking spike and take him out. Then Joyce shows up for some reason to finish him by chopping his head off because they had to give her something to do as well.
Fatality.
Then they all escape back into the real world, but oh no, Linda Hamilton and the military guys are there to arrest them. So 11 magically teleports over to the portal. That all seems a bit suspicious, doesn't it? Just as a big bomb goes off to destroy the Upside Down and seal the gateway forever. Then I guess the military just kind of forgets about the whole thing, because 18 months later, everyone's happy and free and graduating from high school. I mean, you understand, these people are responsible for subverting highly classified military operations, sabotaging vital missions, destroying equipment, and killing literally dozens of active duty personnel, right? In the best case scenario, they're all going to be in prison for the rest of their natural lives.
Don't ask questions.
Let's not worry about that though, because the Duffer Brothers certainly didn't. They had more important stuff to deal with. Remember that love triangle between Nancy and Steve and Jonathan that's been going for like 10 years now? Well, we find out that Nancy ditches both men to marry something way more important. A meaningless corporate job, where she'll gradually sink into a lonely, unsatisfied middle age of late-night TV and wine boxes before dying alone in her fashionable but soulless apartment, childless and unloved, her only legacy a couple of domestic cats that will slowly feast on her decomposing corpse.
Told you.
He's out of line, but he's right.
Oh yeah, and it turns out that 11 faked her own death to escape the military and start a new life, I guess on the assumption that
they will find you unless they think you're already dead.
So she moves to some small village in Norway or something, which kind of had me scratching my head, because small isolated communities like that are tightly knit, and the arrival of an outsider would be talked about and probably spread as a rumour to other places. It would have made much more sense for her to settle in a big city where she's surrounded by millions of anonymous people, but well, who cares? And the show ends with one final game of D&D, where Mike and the others get super emotional because they realise this is probably the last time they'll ever be relevant as actors before turning the board over to the next generation. And that's it. That's Stranger Things. If I had to sum up this finale, and to some extent the whole season, I'd say it reminds me of some old guy that's worked at the same company for like 50 years giving his retirement speech that goes on a bit too long and is a bit too sappy and self-indulgent, but what the hell? You're with...
long.
to hear the guy out because he's kind of earned it. With Game of Thrones' final season, you could absolutely tell the showrunners were trying to speedrun their way to the end because they were bored of the show by that point and desperate to move on to bigger and better things. How did that work out for you chaps? I definitely can't accuse the Duffer Brothers of pulling that kind of shit here though. If anything, they seem to have the opposite problem, trying to draw things out a little too long, getting a little too sentimental and schmaltzy, playing it all a little too safe so they can tie everything up with a neat little narrative bow. I don't hate it, and I don't blame them for wanting to end on a positive note, but it's all a bit predictable and conventional in a show that was always about doing the unexpected and playing with your assumptions. As I mentioned before in my Season 5 review, the biggest issue with this show is the lack of character discipline. The Duffer Brothers collect...
You know what's funny? People were saying, too, about the whole coming out scene. They were saying that, they're like, absolutely not. In the 80s, absolutely not. Look, I grew up in the 80s. I don't see that happening in the 80s. At all.
Characters like other people collect Pokemon cards, and by the finale it was getting to absurd levels. Even with all of the convoluted shit going on, and believe me there was lots of that, there was just way too many people and not enough for them to do. The result is that some characters vanished for half the episode, some got put into a holding pattern, and others just kind of stood around waiting for something to happen. I really expected them to kill off a few people to streamline the narrative, or just give it a bit of weight and meaning, but nope. Apart from Eleven's friend who was so lacking in personality that I couldn't even be bothered to look up her name, every single character makes it to the end credits. There's some attempt to introduce more depth to Henry as an antagonist by fleshing out his origin story, but all it really does is raise more questions the show doesn't have the time or the scope to answer now. So he gets exposed to a fragment of the Mind Flayer that corrupts his mind, eh? How? Where did it come from? How did that scientist end up down a fucking mine shaft in the...
I saw something while scrolling. I saw something while scrolling on Twitter about that rock and how people were talking about things weren't answered about it.
The middle of the desert. Who was he running away from and why? Why did the Demigorgons stop existing when they were no longer convenient to the plot? Why did the Upside Down go from a toxic, monster-filled hellscape to a place you can just hang out with no issues? What was the military's ultimate goal with this whole operation? Why wouldn't they work with the other characters to take on a massive existential threat like Vecna and the Mind Flayer? What happened to Linda Hamilton after this was all over? Why was Max brought back to life when she started...
Linda Hamilton is quite different than what I remembered. From Terminator to Terminator 2. And now, boy, she has transformed.
There's almost no purpose in the story. Why does Millie Bobby Brown have such a weird facial expression? The problem with any mystery show is that the answers to the mystery are usually less interesting than the questions it posed, and I think Stranger Things is in the weird position of giving slightly unsatisfying answers while also generating a whole bunch of brand new questions that it probably didn't intend to ask. It's not an ideal solution. But when all's said and done, well, it could have been worse. A lot worse. It definitely wasn't the triumphant finale that redeemed a pretty flawed and frustrating season, but it also didn't shit the bed in spectacular fashion. I don't know, man. Maybe it had got too big, too expensive, and the stakes were just too high to do anything truly bold or controversial. So what we got instead was a slightly overblown ending that was heavy on spectacle and sentimentality that's unlikely to blow many people away, but probably isn't going to piss too many people off either. Did it stick the land?
I don't know. People are comparing it to Game of Thrones.
Well, it definitely wobbled and maybe took a step back to steady itself, but it did at least go out on its feet. And in this day and age, that's an achievement in itself. And now that it's all over, so long, Stranger Things. It's been real. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.
Well, thanks for that, Drinker. You went to the trenches for us, and I'm glad you came back with news that it's not good enough for me to watch. So I'm going to leave this show as is. Get over and subscribe to the Critical Drinker. Tell them Tyrone Magnus sent you. If you enjoyed my thoughts and commentary, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and share. 10 million subscribers. Woo.